Hello, and welcome to Americana X Newswatch. I'm Greg D, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. Newswatch is a news commentary show for those that are looking for common sense answers to what's really going on behind the crazy sensationalized headlines that are being pushed by 90% of our media. You know, the mainstream media. You know, they're the other parts of our digital media that are now playing as surrogates for our mainstream media. Yeah, all that. This is a show for those that are looking for something more substantive. My name's Greg D. Excited to be with you here today on the Newswatch. I had a few different ways that I was thinking of taking this one today, and I said I'm going to focus just in on one subject. And I think it's going to dovetail into a few other things. It's going to be kind of fun. It might be a shorter episode, but at any rate, we're going to get right into it. What we're covering here today on the show is media focusing on all the wrong things from the first presidential debate. I just think this is so interesting. It's almost like you could put it in a petri dish and study it. It's so bizarre to see what the mainstream media has been doing to basically reframe things. They've been trying to cast things in the light that they'd rather see it in than rather than what it actually is, you know, and they will try to do everything in their power to make Donald Trump look like a bad guy and to make Biden look like a good guy. At any rate, that's what we're talking about today on the show. If you're new here, welcome to the Newswatch. If you've been here before, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. Also, share this video out to those in your network so that we can all celebrate together the rise of a new conservative age and work together to make a greater America. All right, so here's several examples I've written down here just in the last few days of headlines, examples of the spirit of the headline, even if it's not the headline, of what we've been seeing in all of our mainstream news. This is the stuff that, honestly, it's missing the real point, and it's focusing on a bunch of tertiary dumb stuff. All right, so here's the examples I jotted down real quick. Trump fails to disavow white supremacists and Proud Boys. So dumb, not a real issue, totally made up. We'll get to that. All right, another one. Donald Trump is a bully. He's the bully president. Totally not seeing what's really going on. Pretending to focus on something that they're so offended over. Not the real issue. Next one. We need to cancel the rest of the debates because Donald Trump is not civil and he's such a meanie. Canceling debates, changing the rules of the debates, whatever sort of cascade of stories that came from that. It is all missing the larger point. And if they could actually focus on what's really going on, if they could look at it honestly and cover that, they might actually have a chance to turn this thing around and push Joe Biden through as a president. But they can't see it. They're missing the whole thing. They won't see it. And in one way, it's a beautiful thing. In another way, it is kind of frustrating to see these people just continue to struggle. At any rate, we're going to get into it. None of this stuff matters. I'm sure you know it. Most of the general public knows it. I know it. The only thing that people will really be paying attention to and taking away from this last debate is that Donald Trump was more of a dominant figure and more of an alpha male than Joe Biden was. It's all people are going to remember. All this other stuff will blow away and burn out in the next week or two. It's just news cycle garbage. Don't buy it. Don't fall for it. Don't follow it. Don't read it. You don't need it because it's not gonna matter. All that matters is the way people feel when they are walking away from whatever the thing was, right? And the optics are fully on Donald Trump's side. Sure. Joe Biden has the tool of name calling. We saw that in full display, right? I guess that makes him kind of a tough guy. Sort of I mean, a tough guy in the way that a middle schooler is more of like a jerk to kids on the playground than other kids are. You know, it's like, why don't you shut up, man? That's so just cringe-inducing, cheeseball, middle school level, right? And then, of course, any names he had, they just don't stick. If you're just saying you're a jerk and you're the worst and you're awful and you're the worst president ever, you're the worst president ever, it's not going to land. It's not going to stick. The main reason that it's not going to stick is because name calling, without being truly principled and without having any real substantive issues that you stand on, just makes you a jerk. And that's ultimately all Joe Biden is. He's an empty suit jerk at the end of the day. The truth is, Joe Biden does not have natural game instincts. And that is what we're seeing show through. That is the undercurrent that the media, I don't even think they know what's going on. But this is the subtext of what's actually going on in these debates. And we're going to see it again in the next two, I'm telling you right now. Biden is not a real player. He's a guy reciting rote routines, trying to hold his campaign together with spit and wire. Somebody's writing all this stuff, he's memorizing it, he's saying it, but as soon as he runs out of routines, as soon as he runs out of gas, he's got nowhere to go. And you can see it. It happened at least twice in the debate between Donald Trump and himself the other night. Donald Trump got him all jammed up. What was the thing that Donald Trump did? It was a very in-the-moment thing. This shows Donald Trump's natural instinct player moves being put to work in full display, right? He goes, you have law enforcement backing you? Okay, Joe, name one law enforcement agency that is backing you. Just name one. We've got time. We've got time. He's controlling the pace. He's giving him a directive. Joe Biden froze up. He had nothing to go to there because he ran out of routines. I guess you could say Joe Biden's routine stack didn't have a solution for that stem in the tree. Joe Biden, I guess you could say he's the wing and a prayer candidate because honestly, when you do not have real instinct for this stuff, you're just like some politician, some old school politician memorizing a bunch of crap, then ultimately you will run out of gas. One thing that I learned myself from the years that I spent running all over Los Angeles to all the nightclubs, this is before COVID and they shut the world down, it didn't matter how strong my practiced game was. If I wasn't present to the moment and I wasn't truly, naturally better with game, whether that's be practiced over many, many hours or whether that be just natural. You know what? Honestly, I couldn't practice enough. There were some guys that I would meet. If I was in an interaction fighting for the girl, if the dude had more natural game than I did, I would always lose because he would always have one more thing to say at the end of the interaction. And if I'm running out of routines, and I'm relying on routines, and he's got natural game, I'm going to lose to that guy every time. I don't know how many promoters I lost to. A dozen? Guys that just had more natural game. And that's what we're seeing here. The guy with more natural game will always have one more thing to say than the guy that's just spouting scripts. He'll always have one more move, one more dig to make the other guy look foolish. I don't know if you guys remember in the 2016 debate when Trump was going against Hillary, and Hillary said something like, well, it's a good thing you're not president. And then do you remember what Donald Trump's response to her was? And it was like that. He goes, yeah, because you'd be in prison. Bam! Dropped the hammer. That's called true instinctual game. It's not something you learn by going to politician school and being a senator for a bazillion years and then vice president or whatever, whatever Joe Biden did, right? Whatever his path was. It's basically the ability to dispense with all the Marcus of Queensberry rules and play the game in a way that's more instinctual and a little more primal. People are going to tune in on that with Trump. Trump is a natural, where Joe Biden is a practiced political hack. It doesn't matter that Joe Biden has been in politics for 45 years. He could practice for another 45 years. It would not matter. He's always going to lose to a guy like Trump. I think we're going to learn a lot from this cycle, this 2020 election. Possibly, this isn't a full prediction, but I'm guessing that it's very possible that by 2024, we're going to see both Republicans and Democrats putting people forward that have more natural instinct for game, even more than having a strong, long political record. Because every time they're putting up these kind of cheeseball, politics as usual, good body nonsense douchebags, they are losing to Trump. Either they're going to learn from it or they aren't, right? Honestly, I think this is why the media wants to stop the next debates from happening completely. The reason why they want to shut this stuff down right now is because they know that Joe Biden is on his heels and that he basically gave all he had in the other debate. I think he just kind of tore through, he burned through all of his talking points. I think he's going to gas out in the next debate, sometime through the next debate, and they know it. They know he's running out of routines. Or he'll just repeat all the same routines and he's just going to look really bad because all he did was say exactly the same crap he said in the last one. He will literally be going to the next debate worn out. And his routine stack, I don't think ultimately he can do it again. One more debate, and Donald Trump being the stronger alpha male, that'll establish it right there. And then two more debates, Biden will be decimated. Puddle on the floor level. Donald Trump is, going to win not only because he's stronger and in the moment and always has one more dig at the end of the deal, right? At the end of every statement, there's always one more thing he's got that pins the other person, right? But he is just more principled and substantive on issues, rooting his vibrato and his rhetoric. And this is something that I think that we need to pay attention to for politicians in general. The politician that actually has substance to his issues that he's standing on, which is the Republican side right now. They're reason and logic. They have substantive issues that they actually stand on. Democrats are all emotion. They don't actually have any substantive issues. All they have is touchy-feely talking points and platitudes. This is the really big difference that we see, right? So when Donald Trump delivers an insult, it lands and sticks better because there's something behind the insult, right? He'll come up with these clever little things like, Jeb Bush is tired, right? That kind of put down, because we're framing it from who it's coming from. Donald Trump is actually a dude that stands on principle and substantive issues. The media thinks that all this tertiary surface level stuff that they're making a lot of noise about right now is the big takeaway from the debate. But the real story is that Donald Trump is a better player. In a more meta way, to say this would be that Donald Trump was controlling the pace. Okay, so, sorry, I messed up what I was saying there. Think about it more like in a meta level. Donald Trump is controlling the pace of the debate, and he is setting the frame that Joe Biden is falling into. And it happened again and again in the first debate. It'll probably happen all through the second debate. Even if they try to mute his mic, I have a feeling that there's going to be some way that Donald Trump is still going to be able to control the pace, control the frame, and Biden is just going to keep falling into the frame. That's the story that the media can't talk about right now. Maybe because they don't even know what's happening, but leave it to the liberals to make a really big deal out of the smallest issues and ignore the biggest issues, right? They think the biggest issues of the day are stuff like this: race relations and critical race theory. They're all over that right now. They just think that's the biggest issue of the day. Donald Trump fumbling the ball on the coronavirus response. They just think that's such a big story. All the instability that is caused by the economy from the coronavirus. The environment. They think that's a real big one right now. The overturning of Roe v. Wade and putting a focus on that, and the Supreme Court justice thing, and let's make a big deal. Not an issue, not the biggest issue. I mean, I'm sure it's like on some level somebody's talking about it, but it's not the biggest issue. Political correctness as a religion, they're pushing that like crazy. None of these things I just mentioned poll at more than 51% interest with a bulk of the American public. And this is the biggest thing that we need to focus in on. If we were to identify the largest issue of our time, right? If we were to say, well, what's the thing that really shakes people at their foundational level? This is it. Law and order. And the issues that descend from and are included under that category. Things like defunding the police, the chaos and unrest we're seeing in all of our major cities, including what? Rioting, violence, crime, arson, attempted murder, even murder. That stuff shakes people up. And when they see it on social media, and they see the same flag being waved at each one of these places around our country, and when they see people dressed the same way and chanting the same things, that looks like an organized movement of chaos and anarchy. That's what it looks like to people. You can have a guy like Joe Biden say in a debate, Antifa is just an idea, not an organization. But then people see super well organized groups of people dressed the same, carrying the same flag, city over city, causing crime and arson and destruction. Yeah, people are going to put two and two together. They're going to see past Biden's ridiculous statement about it. Most people are not so ideologically possessed that they will overlook Antifa and what it really is. An organized terrorist group. Only the truly ideologically possessed far-left liberals are willing to stick their head in the sand and ignore the footage on social media that exposes Antifa for being the truly destructive force in our country right now. Most average people are not trying to defend violence, rioting, crime, theft, and murder. Come on. Most people in the country are not doing it. Joe Biden might want to overlook it. Other politicians, governors of our major cities around the country may want to overlook this stuff. But most average people are not trying to defend and overlook violence, crime, arson. Donald Trump is just a better player at the game. The game of politics. He's better than the mainstream media, and he's better than any of the politicians that the liberals put forward in this election cycle. Just really what it comes down to. He's just better at the game. So I guess that brings up the question, Greg, you talked a lot about game right now. Why? Like, what does it really have to do with anything? If you don't agree with me already, right, you might be asking, why does all that matter? They're just political debates. Why read that much into it? Why think about this kind of underlying subtext, right? Because understanding how game factors into what makes Donald Trump a great leader and subsequently a great president ties directly into the biggest issues of what we are actually facing in our country today. It's a pretty big statement for me to say, but I have a source to cite on this, which I'm going to share with you right now. I was just watching recently through a series of videos, history videos that VDH made, Victor Davis Hansen. I don't know actually when these videos were made, but finding these things for free on YouTube is like a treasure trove. It's amazing. I'm going to leave a link to the one that I'm citing here to kind of build this case that relates to what we're talking about here. You can see it in the description. Check it out. It's worth looking at. This one is about the history of the Mediterranean. And this goes back to very early world history. So Victor Davis Hansen made a really interesting point that I would like to highlight here that I think gets at what I'm talking about when we talk about the underlying issues that are really going on, that are being ignored at the tertiary level by most of our mainstream media. So the video that he made, you'll see it when you watch it, but it was about the collapse of Rome, and this is actually a screenshot that I took of his video, where he's talking about the entire Mediterranean region, where Rome had a footprint. They had a presence in all of this major area. Rome was a powerful empire. And particularly he was talking about when Rome was going through its season of collapse. Rome started falling apart with tribal invasions from the northern and eastern European areas. Today we might call them Poland, eastern parts of Germany. But these Germanic tribes, like barbarians basically, started to migrate across the Rhine into Italy. And so this caused conflict and eventually led to war. Key ports in Spain and Portugal were compromised in many vicious battles between the Roman Empire and the invading northern Europeans. The system started to crack. And the main reason why the system of Rome started to crack is because it started to get broken apart by these invasions. As people would come in and occupy parts of the Roman Empire, they would lose the ability to trade the way they used to communicate up and down throughout this entire region. One of the points that Victor Davis Hansen made is there's all these little islands, island of Crete and the island of just tons of little spots where you could just sail for 2 days and have a stop somewhere and then sail for another 2 days, right? So there's so many different ports that were all in this region, and the water was really calm. So they could build these big ships, and then they could easily trade and they could easily communicate. Well, when you've got people coming in and starting to cut off your routes for trade and for communication, puts a huge strain on a big empire. He had mentioned that Rome was kind of like the early version of like the one world government, because it was like literally everything was Rome for a while. So it was a cascade of effects that were taking place due to all these invasions. In 455, an invasion from a Vandal group that proceeds to set up a Vandal kingdom in northern Egypt, they then occupied that area of Egypt for 100 years, which takes out what we describe today as Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia as trade partners. This puts a huge squeeze on the Roman Empire during this time. Rome can't afford wheat from Tunisia, and subsequently many other routes of trade that made Rome such a strong nation throughout the Mediterranean region are now cut off, and that's what I was mentioning before. Suddenly trade and even communication, which used to be so easy for Rome when they had full dominance, that entire region became very difficult for them. VDH makes a comparison to what it would be like today if this happened here in America. And this is where I think that this is what that whole story is building to, is this moment right here. He said, it would be like if suddenly people in Southern California couldn't access themselves on the internet, or they couldn't drive out of state, or one major university in California couldn't talk to another major university in California. When our government system starts to break apart, what is created, and this is what happened in Rome, when everything starts to break apart, it creates enclaves. Well, Roman Empire, what made it strong is that they could do all this free-flowing trade and communication through all the waterways. All the ports getting shut down by invading Vandals and northern Europeans shuts down their ability to communicate. It creates enclaves in all these spots. In this, in essence, and now I'm making my own point about this, and this is where I think that we can derive a lesson for today. I see that in America today, one of the major tools that the liberal left is using is the ability to create division and force people into enclaves. And if they can do that, whether it be shutting the world down because of a coronavirus and making that perpetually an issue in all their cities that they occupy, or whether it be leveraging climate change as a way to inspire fear and shut the world down and keep people separated, this creates enclaves. They want to divide our country so that they can set up their own kingdom, where they are the rulers and the emperors of a new world order that the liberals create. That is their end. That is their aim. In essence, I see this as a type of sneaky border war going on within American borders. A border war that is not just physical, but rather defining of borders on the internet and in social media, creating boundaries of sorts, boundaries that are being drawn by liberals so that the right to have a voice in our culture, in our education, in our entertainment, in our media, gets controlled completely by them. They are the overlords of this new world order, and they get to decide who gets to speak and who doesn't. And they're already expressing that power now through the social media. Who knows how long I'll be able to do this show before I'm taken down off the internet, before I'm completely canceled, right? This is what is at stake right now, you guys. In addition to this kind of virtual digital world where they're drawing boundaries, they're even challenging physical borders in the real world, whether that be between countries or whether that be even just on a sort of like individual rights level, you know, the very right to own your own land, be able to protect your own land. Even that's being challenged right now by the left. And their foot soldiers are Antifa and basically outraged far leftists that are trying to destroy our country. Do you think that I'm being a bit extreme here? Do you think I'm taking an extreme position? Am I exaggerating? Is this some sort of hyperbole that I'm speaking in here? For those that have been paying attention, for people that are watching outside the mainstream news like I've been, that just kind of look at what's going on and collecting our information through all these different social media outlets and other basically alternative news creators on YouTube, you know that what I'm saying is true. And you know that this is ultimately what is at stake in this election right now. Do we choose freedom and autonomy and sovereignty and holding our country together? Or do we take totalitarian rule and anarchy and destruction and devolving everything in America into enclaves so that everybody's separated and no one can talk to each other? And we just devolve into anger and bitterness and resentment and animosity and anxiety. This is why it is so imperative right now that Donald Trump win in November. The good news is this: Donald Trump is a stronger candidate than Joe Biden. So we got that going for us. I think it's going to be difficult to actually see any way that Joe Biden could win right now from here. Donald Trump, for one, he's better at playing the game of politics than any liberal, including Joe Biden. And you know, this is, of course, what is freaking out the mainstream media and anybody on the left. They're having a sort of existential breakdown again, but when are they not having an existential breakdown? They just go from one, emotional outrage to another. Trump being better than them at the game is threatening their ability to create virtual and real boundaries to put a box around conservatives and their ideas. He's threatening not only their ability to control people's speech and actions, but also their ability to control the way people think. He's challenging and dismantling their top-down authoritarian rule if anyone disagrees with them. And this is why I think ultimately Donald Trump is going to win this election. That's my prediction right now. I go a step further and say he's going to win in a landslide. But understanding what's really going on behind the scenes, understanding that there's a subtext to everything that's going on that can't necessarily just be written off by like silly platitudes or goofy Twitter hashtags. And that subtext is that Donald Trump's just better at playing the game of politics than even the best politicians on the other side. All right, you guys, let me know what you think, in the comments section. Tell me if you agree with me, you disagree with me. We'll keep the conversation going. Until next time, this has been Americana X Newswatch. I'm Greg D, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. And have a great week. We'll see you soon.